You must do this to be even a man. We're not asking, we're telling you. To play the game, this is the base cost. You can't really negotiate this stuff. He's at 76,000. That's Psych Hacks. Follow him if you enjoy his content. It's really good. Much needed in the space.
Ryan Taraban, and this is Psych Hacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is the superficiality of desire. So I've been kicking around this episode in my head for a while, and I've come to the conclusion that humans seem to be more or less hopelessly, tragically superficial with respect to what they are attracted to. And I think this is true for both men and women. The internets would love to have a protracted argument about which sex is more superficial than the other. However, I think it's safe to say that both are extremely superficial, albeit in different ways. And after discussing what I mean by this, I'm going to offer a potentially radical and counterintuitive suggestion with respect to how folks might choose to navigate this reality. So let's get to it. All right. It is woefully apparent that the things that men and women are attracted to, the things that men and women tend to look for and swipe for in their potential partners, have little to no relation whatsoever to the things that we know tend to make people happy, or the things we know tend to make for successful relationships. The height of a man, the size of her bust, for instance, have absolutely nothing, zero to do with whether that particular man or that particular woman is capable of even a non-terrible relationship. And it's also true that pointing this out isn't going to change a goddamn thing. People want what they want, even if it's unreasonable, even if it's socially unacceptable, even if it's downright toxic. Fighting against this is a losing battle, and one that I personally believe doesn't need to be fought anyway, because I've come to some measure of acceptance with respect to this reality. So, how do men and women differ with respect to their superficial desires? Well, it will probably come as little surprise that men tend to be tragically superficial with respect to women's physical appearance. And that's a real kick in the teeth for some women. Because if a woman doesn't meet certain minimum standards of attractiveness in a man's eyes, she's going to be functionally invisible to that man as a potential mate. Now, there are many...
It's a good thing there's so many simps in the world with absolutely no standards for themselves, so they'll literally pipe anything that gives them the time of day. So luckily for women, even though men have standards, they're in the gutter. Most of those you wouldn't qualify as, quote, real men anyways, but there's still so many of them that can fund the lifestyles of even the ugliest ogres walking the earth today. That's the truth. It is what it is. But yeah, you engage in hookup culture and dating apps, it tends to become more and more superficial. People aren't judging people based on their ability to hold a long-term relationship, start a family with this person. Will they make a good mother? Will they make a good father? No, it's how tall is he? How chattish does he look? How big her breasts and her ass are? Yeah, I want this one for the night. And then people end up sleeping with each other for the night, have stupid pillow talk and go, yeah, maybe I'll see this person again. Fast forward a few months. Yeah, maybe we should start dating. I guess I kind of like you enough. You seem to have a cool personality. The personality comes after the sex. And then these people enter in a relationship after they've already used each other up sexually, and then try to put the pieces together, and then find out red flags after the fact, and then cope with finding out the red flags. Maybe they'll change. It's okay. This is what I got for now. This is good enough. They become complacent, and then they try to mend, essentially, as they go, these broken relationships full of red flags, and they end up being unhappy with one another. Ta-da! You have the average relationship today.
Many things that are within a woman's control that can influence her appearance. Fitness and fashion, foremost among them. However, none of them will make a woman gorgeous if the genetics aren't there to back it up. So I have some sympathy for women. There's only so much you can do. And hitting the genetic lottery with respect to looks actually tells us nothing about whether she can, say, regulate her own emotions, let alone hold a conversation. But men are going to keep wanting what they want. Now, before I go any further, if you're liking what you're hearing, please consider sending this episode to someone who might benefit from its message. It's word of mouth referrals like this that really help to grow the channel. And if you're thinking about going to grad school, then be sure to check out my top-rated GRE self-study program at stellargre.com. You can use the coupon code PSYCH for 10% off all membership plans. Now, on the other hand, women not only have their own superficial desires with respect to men's physical appearance, a man's height, again, being at the top of the list, women also tend to be superficial with respect to the things around men, which means their lifestyle more generally.
Yep.
Many years ago, I went out on a first date with a woman in college, and I thought the date went fairly well. We actually ended up in a multi-year relationship further down the road. But that night, when I invited her back to my dorm room, she turned me down and she told me that she wasn't interested in never seeing me again. Okay. Many years later, I learned that the reason why she didn't come back with me that night, the reason why she apparently wasn't interested in seeing me again, was that her previous boyfriend had had his own apartment. And she felt like it would be a step backwards for her to be dating a guy who lived in the college dorms. As Chris Rock has said, men cannot go backwards sexually, and women cannot go backwards in lifestyle. Here's an example of this in action. Unfortunately, and this is where women really shoot themselves in the collective foot, eliminating a man, especially a young man, from consideration due to his circumstances is not only superficial, it's stupid. Why? Well, in my own personal case, I lived in those dorms for like another 6 months, after which I got my own apartment. The lifestyle of a man is going to change. And if the guy has any sense or ambition at all, it's probably only going to get better and better.
Yeah, but the problem is women don't have to wait for a man to get better. They can pick winners right now. They have winners lined up. Unfortunately, it's hard to tame one of those winners and get him to marry her, but she nonetheless is exercising those options on a day-to-day. That's the part he didn't get here. So again, while you're on your way, it may be nice and some women may choose to risk being with you for the upside later. Most women won't stomach that risk simply because they don't have to. So she picked the ex-boyfriend that had his own place as a safer bet because he was further along in life and doesn't want to bank it on this dude living in the dorms. That's why your lifestyle is important. That's why when they wait at the finish line, it's the guy in the boat, the guy that has the big house, the flashy car, the nice clothes, the job title, all the above that can essentially facilitate a dream lifestyle. That guy's winning, period, because he's further along. This is why I tell you guys, work hard in your 20s and play in your 30s. Then get to pick the woman you really want to settle down with when you're ready and she also finds you attractive. You're at your peak there. It won't feel like she's settled. She'll feel lucky. The chances of your relationship failing go down a lot, as opposed to trying to lock a woman down while you're barely building yourself up. And then an option comes along that's already built up. Now you look like less of a man in her eyes. It is what it is because the option's there. That guy can, if he wanted to, take your woman, if she was willing to, if it was the right time and right place. Maybe you guys get in an argument. Maybe you're stressing about money. Maybe she's getting jealous at her girlfriends that get higher status men. Who knows what it is that's going through her head, but you're nonetheless in a bad, or I should say a worse off position by trying to angle this fish early in your life when you're not ready to hold it.
But women often don't want to wait. They don't want to be a part of the process by which the man extrapolates the desirable lifestyle. They want to hang out at the winner's circle, which, as I've mentioned in previous episodes,
There it is.
actually a really bad mating strategy for the vast majority of women.
Yep.
Ladies, you can watch my episode, Find.
Yeah, he does nail it. They wait at the finish line. And like I said, the pumping and dumping is all they get as a consolation prize of playing that game.
Your dark horse for a counterintuitive recommendation on what you can implement instead. On the other hand, a woman's face is kind of her face. It's unlikely to improve over the course of her lifetime. So while men might be superficial in basing mate preference so heavily on physical attractiveness, they're not quite as stupid. Now, maybe there's a reason women seem to be impatient. They don't have the same luxury of time as men do, given their reproductive window. So let's assume there's some kind of evolutionary incentive for women's impatience with the lifestyles of men. However, it's also likely true that women tend to reject more men for more superficial reasons than men reject women for purely economic reasons. Women just tend to have more options than men do. It's easier to kick someone out of bed for eating crackers if you have some folks sitting up in the living room. And the greater the perceived optionality, the more superficial women's superficiality becomes. And why not? I'm convinced that most men would do the same if they enjoyed the same degree of optionality. I think this is an economic principle, not necessarily a gender-specific one. Okay, so why am I talking about all this? Ideally, I would like people to at least consider the possibility that the gender-specific examples of the superficiality of desire that they are personally frustrated at or enraged by are likely not going to change anytime soon.
Never.
Among other reasons, they are...
Never. No matter how much you try to shame every gender, no matter how much you try to empower queens to act like men or shame men into not following their biological directives like small waist, hourglass figure, how young a woman is, fertility markers that men have to follow just purely because it's genetically encoded in us. This is what we look for. This is what means healthy baby. Younger women mean healthier babies being born. Wider hips, healthier babies. Bigger breasts, more milk. More feminine, more whatever. You can't really negotiate this stuff. Just like when women try to play it off like they like dad bods, that's not true either. It's not. They don't like dad bods. They don't like fat guys. It is what it is. The more feminine you make men, you're not going to indoctrinate women into wanting these skinnier, more femboy looking types of males walking around today. You can't. They'll always sleep with the Chad looking guys. They're always going to pick the physical specimens. And then they're always going to settle with a quote, safe, nice guy. That is the biological directive. The faster you get this in your head, the faster you can start making adjustments in your own life to essentially win the quote game, or at least play by the rules set forth and have a better outcome for yourself.
Are likely rooted in evolutionary and economic principles that are royally indifferent to whatever social ideology happens to be prevalent at the time.
Nailed it.
The superficiality of desire is here to stay. And within this understanding, my counterintuitive recommendation is to accept this reality and learn to play the game of superficiality more successfully.
I love this guy's channel. I have to reach out to him and do a whole podcast on this stuff because he's just nailing it.
Now, when people take offense at this recommendation, they generally do so from the position akin to something like, Orion, the things you're talking about are petty and insignificant. Why should it matter if I have my own place? What does that have to do with me, who I am as a person, or a flat stomach, or a nice haircut, or that I wear high heels or not? Who cares? Those things aren't me. I fall in love with people's minds, with people's souls, and I want someone who wants me for me, not what I have or happen to look like.
Delusion.
Okay. And leaving aside the obvious lack of acceptance this response indicates, my answer to this is something like, if what I'm talking about is really so petty and insignificant, why not just do it? I mean, it might be petty and insignificant that your boss prefers blue ink to black ink on his reports, but if it's really no skin off your back, and if it helps you keep your job, just use the blue pens. The more superficial and insignificant the objection becomes, the less defensible it becomes, especially if the costs associated with addressing it are dwarfed by the potential liabilities of not addressing it. This means that women should...
AKA, lift, bro. Get a good body. Educate yourself. Get a good job. This isn't a recommendation. This is like a do or die. You must do this to be even a man in a woman's eyes. We're not asking. We're telling you to play the game. This is the base cost.
Should not only take care of their physical appearance.
Likewise for women, the base level to play the game and be able to settle in a family and have a man take care of you for the rest of your life that you want, that you would like to have. Not settling, a actual prize of a man. You need to be skinny. You need to have a 0 or near 0 body count. You can't be promiscuous and post all your shit on the web. You need to have all the traditional conservative values high value men are looking for. Full stop. There's no negotiating that.
They should invest in it and potentially invest heavily. And men should not just take care of their lifestyles, they should invest in them and potentially invest heavily. If getting a personal trainer significantly increases your attraction, then do it. If having a stylish outfit increases your attraction, then what is the problem, my people? If you can spend a few $1,000s to raise your attractiveness a point or two, that might very well be one of the best possible uses of your money. I'm not sure if people can see your mind or your soul, but I'm absolutely sure that if they don't like your packaging, they're not going to stick around long enough to see it.
Yeah. What they will see is that Porsche. What they will see is that bank account balance. What they will see is that restaurant you're choosing to eat at. What you will see as a man is her breast in that tight dress. What you will see is that thin waistline or that big behind. That's what you will see, that pretty face. You won't see those baggy eyes from thousands of nights out, sleepless, drunk, drugged up, getting piped left and right. No. You won't see that.
Assuming they can at all. Fortunately, addressing the superficial elements of attraction is actually far easier and far cheaper than addressing many of the other things that factor into the mating dating game. So you might as well start there, just keeping it a buck. What do you think?
Yeah, nailed it. They're too busy, though, attracting men based on their, are you a Sagittarius in retrograde? Oh my God, we're a 32% compatibility match. Astronomy is the dumbest shit that they could possibly use to try to match with a man, yet they all still do it. One of the biggest things, what sign are you? That's the sign of a moron. Next, one of the biggest red flags in the West right now. The moment she asks you what sign you are, or if she has her sign up on her profile, just next her ass. That's a short-term prospect for fun only. Sheesh.